All right, to the left we have the Sony A90J, to the right we have the LG C10. Now I'm dealing with space limitations, so there's not a whole lot that I can do as far as getting them both perfectly in frame. If you want the short answer as to which one wins, the LG C10, in my personal opinion, is the better HDR TV. Now the Sony is more accurate and of course has better brightness, and so for many, they might like that better. But for me personally, what I like better as a, I guess, personal preference is the LG C10. Now, we're going to talk about how this kind of plays into part. I'll talk about the colors, the black levels, what I'm noticing, and then kind of, again, just round it off with like my final thoughts and everything. But essentially, I found so many different scenes where the Sony has color accuracy. But there were moments where I was trying to dial in the Sony to look a lot more like the LG, because the way that they do their dynamic tone mapping was a little better in a lot of scenes that I really liked, specifically in Pacific Rim. Now, unfortunately, due to copyright on YouTube, heavy copyright, I can't show you all that cool stuff. But what I can do is try to show some of the stuff that I'm talking about off in the Spears & Munsell UHD benchmarking disc. So take this scene in the Spears & Munsell UHD benchmarking disc, for example. You know, there are just so many more shades of color coming off of the LG as far as the ground and things like that. And I don't know how much of this is going to show on YouTube. I'll try to darken it. I really don't even think you'll be able to see it. It's so hard to show the kind of things that I'm talking about off, so you're just going to have to trust me. Essentially, LG does better with the sharpness, and that leads to some crazy contrast that the Sony just isn't kicking out. And in some scenes, they actually find highlights better than the Sony. Where the Sony has its benefit, its overall brightness is stronger, color volume is stronger, color accuracy is greater, so that's all fantastic. But ultimately, what clinched it for me for the LG was just the fact that it had better motion. I don't care how you slice it, the Sony has bad motion. It's juddery, it's choppy, it's not good. And for a $3,000 TV, I'm not seeing the level of shock and awe that one would expect at that price tag. I mean, listen, it is the greatest HDR TV I've ever seen. You can definitely see a lot of details and things like that in some areas. But even with that, I still feel like the LG, for my personal taste, is better. Because I'm going to be very real. The Sony is, I guess, as far as an HDR TV goes, it is the better HDR TV, which makes this whole kind of comparison seem extremely conflicting. But that's kind of how these comparisons work, right? So when you have some kind of content on screen, like movies and gaming and whatever else you watch, it's going to come down to a viewer choice. And whatever you're watching, those results can be very different. So this is very difficult to do a one-size-fits-all type answer. And I'm sure maybe some of you might arrive at your own conclusions. I'll say this, though. Out of all the TVs that I've tested, I can safely say the Sony A90J has the brilliant HDR that I'm looking for, that I like in a lot of areas, but ultimately the C10 is doing something better. And better in the sense of, I just like the motion, I like the contrast, I like the clarity, and the extra tools to get the look that I'm looking for, like being able to enable an eye comfort mode. Sony doesn't have anything like that. They're kind of bare bones, and the lack of features really holds them back from allowing me as a user and as a former professional calibrator to get the look that I'm looking for every single time. It's a lot harder to get the same kind of look that I want on the Sony, and that's just kind of where I fall in with this whole HDR experience thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I was seeing details I didn't even know existed in movies with IMAX enhanced on, and that's great and everything, but you can't just have detail, right? You can't just have awesome color. There is more to a picture quality than those things. And sadly, I will say that the LG just consistently is doing it better. It's showing me more of what I'm looking for when I go to these comparisons and I see these scenes and I'm testing for this, which is not something I expected. I truly expected the Sony to just dominate the LG. So in that regard, I guess I can say that I am eating my words about the C10 the more I compare it to 2021 TVs, because it's just showing me how capable the LG C10 actually is, or how not capable 2021 is. Either way, I'm taking an L, and I'm not afraid to admit that I'm wrong in some areas of the LG C10 and how these TVs stack up. That's just a part of growing and learning what these TVs do as more come out and you compare. But I'll tell you this, man, you know, as I've watched these comparisons play out and I've seen like scene after scene after scene, like this night scene, for example, this night scene looks so much better on the LG than the Sony, and the way that I prefer. And here's what I mean. You won't see this on camera, so please don't even try, because it's not going to happen. But essentially, I can see things like the light on the buildings in the background. I see each individual light represented as a solid source, like the little light bulbs themselves. I see every window. I see every reflection. I see everything on the C10. On the Sony, I don't. They're targeting global brightness, and it is brighter than the C10. The color accuracy is greater. They're getting the hues better and more correct, and that's great and all, but I don't just care about color accuracy. I don't just care about brightness. I care very much about my contrast and my detail. And the C10 is doing that better, but you do have black crush on the C10, and you are losing some information in the buildings at the bottom. I don't know if you guys can see it. I'll try to raise it up. But like the Sony has the better shadow detail, but it's not enough for me. Like I want a certain kind of look, and the C10 is doing it. And it's just gonna really, honestly, when you talk about these TVs, come down to like viewer preference sometimes. See, the C10's gonna have black crush from time to time, but that black crush also means your blacks are deeper, so you're gonna get more three-dimensional imagery sometimes. And scenes like this, where now the Sony just looks a bit flat by comparison to the C10. It's so hard to say that one is so much better than the other, because that's not how these things work. And I think a lot of people are going to be very disappointed with the Sony A90J if they have a C10 and they're expecting a light year leap ahead. It's not going to happen. It doesn't exist. The reality is it's a great TV. It's excellent. But when you start comparing it to TVs, then the flaws really start to show themselves. Sony honestly is overhyping this TV. They're getting way too cocky and charging way too much for a television. A 55-inch TV does not cost $3,000, and I haven't seen a single thing that Sony has shown me that has redeemed anything to warrant that price range. And maybe this might come off as purely emotional, maybe this might come off as just pure conjecture, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to like put it in perspective as humanly possible as I can. I don't like the whole robotic things where I just show you test patterns and I just kind of, you know, do what all the other guys do. I'm not the other guys, so I'm not going to pretend or play like I am. I'm a real person like you guys, and I tell you right now, as I look at it, man, like scene for scene, tit for tat, I'll try to lower this down again, maybe you can see a little bit more. I like to look at the C10 better. Now the colors are racking more accurate on the C10. I see more feathers in the bird's, you know, body, on the bird's body. I just see more on the C10. And for those, again, this kind of plays a role into everything I always say. If LG wins something, I'm going to tell you. And this is one of those examples where I came out and I said the Sony A90J was the best HDR TV and the best HDR picture out of anything I've ever seen. And that was true, because at the time, I've really honestly, just looking at it, never seen that much detail on any other TV. And that's true. They do have awesome like color accuracy, and shadow detail can be really amazing in HDR and reveal things you didn't notice were there. And the tone mapping is great and all of that stuff. Wonderful, fine, great. But LG with their C10 is doing something better for me. They're creating three-dimensionality, which I didn't even know they would be able to do. Now, to be completely fair, I am not your regular user of these TVs. I was a former professional calibrator. Both of these TVs have been optimized and then taken a step above that to their absolute peak of performance. So the average person that's watching this comparison will never see the kind of imagery that I'm talking about right here. I use things like the AI features on the LG C10 to get here, because without the AI features, you're not getting here. I use things like picture processing on the Sony, things that these so-called industry professionals turn off. Again, everybody's going to have their own opinion in this AV space, and I'm not here to tell you not to watch somebody or to throw shade at whoever. You do whatever you want. What I am telling you is when you watch some people and they have different results from mine, that's the reason why. I do things for the best picture quality. They do things for the most accurate image in accordance to what a computer program tells them. I go by eye, they go by programs. We are two different kinds of perspectives and approaches, and so some people do have to respect that. Now, again, I understand that, again, there are some people that are going to be brand loyalists. They want their TV to win no matter what, and that's not the kind of channel that I have here. I'm telling you, like, as I look at this frog on the screen right now, this is telling. This is the kind of stuff that like really makes me go, wow, this is crazy. I'm going to try to lower down my ISO. Again, I have no idea what's going to show up on YouTube. YouTube just does whatever the hell it wants sometimes. But the C10 is really looking quite great. I mean, the Sony has that color accuracy part down, and that's why this comparison really has me a bit torn, if I must be honest with you, because on the one hand, as somebody who understands color science and understands the approach that filmmakers take, you know, it's difficult because Sony is getting colors right. They have the highlights, the color volume is there, the C10 is limited with their color volume, but then the C10, even though they're black crushing, you see every little detail because I'm using things like super resolution to pull out that extra detail. Sony doesn't have a feature like that, and so it's falling behind. And I'm sure if you were to disable a feature like that, then they would kind of even out, but I'm not here to do that. I'm here to see if I push these TVs as hard as I can, who's my winner, man? And I'm talking like balls to the walls. We're all going hard and putting everything on the line. And I tell you right now, the LG C10 is that deal. And for me, I look at it now, Sony is charging $3,000 for this experience that I'm looking at my C10 that I've had, and I'm just looking at like, well, this is clearly the better TV in my personal view in the way I see it. More three-dimensionality, more contrast on a lot of scenes. I mean, like, I prefer the colors of the strawberries now. And when I'm preferring the C10 more and more, it just kind of feels like the C10's the winner. And so for me, personally, the C10 wins. Now, the Sony, on this same exact scene, has more shadow detail and things like the reflection beneath the strawberries. The strawberries themselves have more of a, I guess, to be very fair, a natural look because the color accuracy is better on the Sony A90J for this. But it's hard because it's like, dude, I really, honestly, if I'm being real with everybody here, I don't give a rat's ass about color accuracy. It's, at the end of the day, we buy these TVs for what looks good. The A90J looks good, but the A90J doesn't look LG C10 good to me. But to another person, the complete and total opposite could happen, right? You can see the shadow detail, you can see the color accuracy, and those are the two things that matter the most to you. You're like, I have shadow detail and color accuracy, so you know what? The A90J is the winner, especially because it has better color volume, which gives me a little bit more throw on my color. So for some, that might be the answer. But for me, the C10 with that three-dimensional look and that draw where it's just like 3D glasses without needing 3D with this HDR and all of this processing on, I tell you, like, there's no comparison. I don't know if I can probably go back a couple steps here. In Chapter 6 on the Spears and Munsell UHD benchmarking disc, you're really going to see a lot more of the three-dimensional stuff that I'm talking about. You're going to see this flower here. You won't see this on camera. And again, I'm sorry that I can't show 100% everything, and I'm really enthusiastic about this because this is even exciting to me as I see these things. But now, the Sony, because it's trying to be this brighter OLED this year, they're clipping information. You're losing details, so that's great. You're just throwing away information, where the C10, they're not trying to do that. They're trying to give you intelligent tone mapping as best as they can, and it's working very good here, and I mean really good here. And I'm seeing what I'm looking for, and I'm seeing the sharpness in every little stem and leaf and, well, not leaf, but, you know, you get what I'm saying, every little thing there. And the flower here, it just looks better on the LG C10. I mean, if I were to be honest with myself, if motion is smoother, I like the three-dimensionality better. I like the detail, the fine details like water droplets and things like that. And I love the color on the C10, but it's not as accurate as the Sony. I mean, if I'm being honest with myself, the C10 is going to be the winner here. And even though if we're talking like factually and scientifically, yes, the Sony A90J is the best HDR TV they've ever created. It does do a lot more for accuracy, and people who are cinephiles are going to love that. It is wonderful. It has excellent shadow detail. It has a lot right. But for the money, the C10 makes the most sense. You have 99.9% of the Sony A90J experience, and then it goes a step above and beyond by giving you things the A90J never could, like that extra, again, all that extra stuff I was talking about with detail and stuff like that. So I think that this is a great showing for the Gen 3 chip that LG put into the LG C10. I think this is really where I'm starting to see the value of the C10. I mean, I've only paid $1444 after taxes for my 55-inch C10. I've paid $3,000 for this Sony A90J, and it is not impressing me more than this C10 is. And that's as honest as anyone's gonna tell you. So if you want my take on it, don't run out buying some LG OLED Evo or some LG one or some Sony A90J, just get the C10 because it's still doing really good. Yeah, there are things like in this scene, this Ferris wheel scene, there's black crush. I don't care how I slice it, there's black crush, and you might or might not pick up on it on camera. I'll try to open up my ISO here, maybe you can see that a little better. There's definitely black crush. I'm losing information, like in between the Ferris wheel itself. Like there's totally information loss. I get that, and for some people, that's a deal breaker. So I'll say it like this. This comparison for HDR is gonna end like this. You're going to have to pick what you want. So just to recap, I'll lay it out like this. Sony has better color accuracy. It can be more vibrant. You know, you have more shadow detail. You have, you know, just more of a cinephile look. If you want more of a shock and awe look, you want more three-dimensionality, deeper black, tighter contrast. That's what the C10 gives you. And also the price, we have to weigh that in. So that's what that TV is, and that's who that TV is for. So hopefully this kind of helps you guys out. I know I'm all over the place with this one, but really this is a tough thing to really decide. You have to choose, you know, reference over preference, if I must say it like that, but that's really how this is for this particular comparison. But personally, I personally choose the C10. I think it's a winner in this comparison, and I think honestly anyone being honest with themselves would notice that the C10 is doing more, especially given the motion. Motion changes everything. Sony's motion is so fundamentally broken and bad that I have to give it to the C10. I was watching Pacific Rim just to wrap this video up, and I'll tell you right now, every time there's a fighting scene, you notice how bad the motion is. It's motion blur like you wouldn't believe. Motion gets muddy, smeary, crappy, jittery, juttery. Everything you hate about bad motion, the Sony A90J has for $3 grand. The C10 was perfect. I had none of that crap. I had maybe the occasional like jitter, but it was nothing anywhere close to how bad the Sony is for motion. So naturally the C10, yeah, they win. So I really hope this helps you guys out. Thanks for watching the #1 brand in honesty. Until the next video, I'll see you guys later.